Welcome to this supplement to episode 32 of the Exit Your Matrix show, where we get into more detail and principles underlying natural law. Enjoy. One concept we need to talk about up front is truth versus perception. So truth is simply that which has occurred and is occurring presently. It has no relationship with perception or understanding. In fact, truth is what we could call belligerent, because it's belligerent in the face of untruth. It is unchanging and it's elemental. We contrast truth with what can be summed up as perception is reality thinking, which I think we've all heard. So this is a man-made, ego-based concept that's intended to make us feel as though we have a role in determining what is true, and somehow we're important and special, and the unfolding of reality is actually interested in our opinion, which it is most certainly not. A gentleman by the name of Travis Walton includes this in his book, Fire in the Sky. Quote, "I've come to realize that the biggest problem anywhere in the world is that people's perceptions of reality are compulsively filtered through the screening mesh of what they want and do not want to be true. But coming to knowledge is a destructive process. It's destructive to beliefs, particularly ill-informed ones." Okay, so where to start with this inquiry? How about we start with words like first, foremost, leading, chief, and most necessary? It just so happens that each of those terms is found in the definition of a very important word, and that is principle. So we must begin with principles, and specifically the 7 Hermetic Principles, which are closely associated with natural law. Plus, we'll throw in a bonus. First up is the principle of mentalism, which states that the all, this is everything in creation, is actually a manifestation of mind. Another description is that all that has or will exist began in the mind, as a thought or idea. And the mind also creates conditions. It creates thoughts, which yields emotions, and that so-called chemical wedding of thoughts and emotions results in actions. Second is the principle of correspondence, which is the genesis of a phrase you may have heard before, as above, so below. Or that which is above is like to that which is below. The macrocosm and microcosm are reflections of each other. Specific to the topic of this discussion, we can say that the laws which govern the large, maybe call them societies, are similar to those which govern the small, individuals. And that leads us to a very important point, which is, to know the workings of the individual equips us to understand the workings of groups of people, and vice versa. The principle of vibration is next, and this is the understanding that nothing is at rest. Even the hardest, heaviest substance contains matter that is in constant motion. The universe has no solidity as we understand it. In fact, in a prior episode, I talked about the double slit experiment, where the act of observing matter actually changed its behavior. Fourth is the principle of polarity, which holds that everything is dual, meaning that everything has poles and everything has its pair of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. So examples are hot and cold, light and dark, etc. Now onto the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. These are all the manifestations of tendencies that exist in nature. It's the movement of the pendulum, one direction, and then equally in the other. 6 is the principle of cause and effect. I would argue this is the most important, and it's also my personal favorite. This holds that every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is simply a name for a law not recognized. This is entirely consistent with each of us having free will, but what it denies is that there is free will to ignore law. The real law, cosmic law, without consequence. That's the limitation of free will. An important element of this principle is that there is often a delay between the cause and the effect. Because of that lack of immediate feedback, we don't pick up on the connection because there is no pattern we can perceive. And our culture is consumed with effects, all the hyper-focus on the things we observe around us, but without any awareness or even curiosity about why they are the way they are. In other words, there is little interest in what the causes are. The 7th principle is gender, and we start with the understanding that everything has its masculine and feminine principles. We see gender in all planes of existence: mental, physical, spiritual, but let's focus on mental gender. This is found in the coexistence of the two hemispheres of the brain and their associated aspects. The right brain having a feminine aspect with qualities of holistic thinking, empathy, creativity, and intuition, and the left brain having the masculine aspect of what we call intellect, which is comprised of logic, analytical, and linear thought processes. And here's that bonus principle I mentioned earlier, and this is entirely attributable to Mark Passio. He argues for an eighth principle, which is the generative principle of care. This is the principle that binds the other seven. It's what means enough to us to use those two forms of personal currency we have, our time and our attention. What is important enough to us to spend time on and pay attention to. We then must put our will behind whatever it is we value. And as the description generative principle implies, this will is the driving force behind the creation of action in the world. And keep in mind that people can exert that will and create action towards something that you and I, or perhaps even the vast majority of people, would agree is offensive or even evil. But that does not change the fact that their act of care creates progress toward their goal, because the very simple and observable fact is that the universe rewards care. The cosmos makes no judgment about whatever it is that's being pursued. It only operates to reward those who demonstrate and engage in thoughts, emotions, and actions that are based in care. Again, belief is irrelevant in these matters. All workings of the universe take the form of laws, and opinions about them are meaningless. Cosmic laws simply are. It's just as futile to disagree with the laws of thermodynamics or electromagnetism or gravity or inertia or momentum than to disagree with natural law. What is relevant to discovering truth is consciousness, which can be defined as the ability of a being to recognize patterns and meanings with respect to events taking place, both within oneself, which is the microcosm, and in the realm in which the self exists and operates, which is the macrocosm. Natural law is also known by other terms such as the law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, karma, or moral law. But I really like a take I've heard, and Mark Passio talks about this, and that is to more appropriately describe it apophatically. And this means a description in terms of what something is not, or through the qualities it does not possess. So this is affirmation through negation, which turns do unto others that which you would want done unto you into do not do unto others that which you do not want done unto you, which I think is a fabulous way to go about that. All right, let's go a little bit further now, and let's talk about the 5 expressions of natural law, or how natural law actually works. So there are positive and negative aspects at the ends of a continuum. They are like the polarities of the natural law principles. They are degrees of the same thing. They're not really opposites. So let's start with the generative polarity, and this is basically what we use to create. The positive generative polarity is love, and another word for that is consciousness. In regard to natural law, love should be seen as the expansive force for consciousness. Love is the force which helps us to become open to truth and expand our awareness. The negative aspect of the generative polarity is fear. Fear is the contractive force for consciousness. Fear is the force which influences us to become closed to truth, and the force which ultimately shuts down our awareness. So let's take a look at the initiating expression, in other words, how it starts. This is the first stage of recognizable and tangible results which we produce in our lives after we have set the ball rolling, so to speak, by choosing either the generative polarity of love or fear. The positive aspect of the initiating expression is knowledge, or the acceptance of truth. Knowledge positively influences the quality of our lives because it positively influences our decision-making processes in every area of our lives. The negative aspect of the initiating expression is ignorance, or the refusal of truth. Ignorance negatively influences the quality of our lives because it negatively influences our decision-making processes in every area of our lives. It's important to remember that ignorance should be distinguished from nescience. Nescience means not knowing because necessary information is not present or it's unobtainable. Ignorance, on the other hand, means not knowing even though necessary information is present. because that information has been willfully refused or disregarded. And while we're on this topic, let's not lose sight of the fact that we have been warned time and again about the dangers of ignorance. Samuel Adams said, "No people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders." And isn't it interesting that seemingly everything we're fed sure does look like it's designed to keep us in a state of ignorance? Let's move now to the internal expression. So this is also what we can call what happens inside of us. The positive aspect of the internal expression is sovereignty, or what we can call internal monarchy, or one ruler within. As a state of consciousness, sovereignty means that one has unified the three aspects of their consciousness, such that there is no contradiction between one's thoughts, emotions, and actions. The negative aspect of the internal expression is confusion, or what can be called internal anarchy, which means no ruler within. Confusion is the state of mind in which the being is ruled by fear and ignorance. Confusion could be seen as internal opposition, or being torn apart from within, such that one's thoughts, emotions, and actions are in perpetual contradiction to each other. An external expression. This is what happens in society or in the aggregate. The positive aspect of the external expression is freedom, or what can be called external anarchy, which is no external ruler. True freedom from all should be seen as the goal of spiritual development. Such a state can only manifest as a result of human society's adherence to natural law. The negative aspect of the external expression is control, or what can be called external monarchy, in other words, one external ruler. Control is the pathway to all forms of evil and destruction. It results when a society lives in direct opposition to natural law. And then we come to manifestation, which is the result we create. The positive manifestation is order, or manifested goodness. Order represents everything we say we want. Order results only when there is balance, or justice, which can only be present when truth has been accepted and our behavior has been brought into harmony with natural law. The negative manifestation is chaos, or manifested evil. Chaos is the exact opposite of what we say we want. Chaos results when there is an imbalance and injustice, which results whenever there is ignorance of truth and behavior which is in opposition to natural law. And keep in mind that movement within this only goes within the positive and negative expressions. It remains there, and it only goes in order, so it doesn't skip steps. I hope this has been helpful. As always, be well, and remember to do your own thinking. See you next time.